Perfect. So, hi everyone. Thanks for joining this webinar. So this is our final student-centered webinar of the series of semester 1, and we're going to look at some kind of hints and tips of exams, and we have really targeted it towards the January exams. So as you know, the January exams are online. And you normally have like a week study week in January, and I think they start around the 7th, 8th of January. So it's really important to kind of look at, what exams you have and what types of questions you're going to be asked. So I suppose we're just going to do an overview, and any kind of questions you have, feel free to ask in the chat. Keeva is keeping an eye on it. So just how to create a study plan, making sure that you're set up. We're going to look at some techniques to do study for MCQs, open book exams, essay structured exams, and also looking at how to deal with exam stress. So I suppose there's a lot of things going on, but if you just take a few tips that you find suitable for you and the type of study that you need to do, that would be great.
Aoife, would you mind moving your mic forward a little bit? There's just a bit of feedback coming in on it.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, just a kind of like that's not even an echo, so I think it's just picking up some.
Is that all right now?
Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah, fair play.
So I suppose we're going to use Mentimeter again. So if you could get your phones and type in the code is this week, it's 6250665. So that's 6250665, and you normally only need to put that code in once. So if you kind of have looked at your January exams timetable or anything like that, or if your lecturer has been in contact with you, how many January exams do you have? So there's 2 people that have said 1, or 1 person that says 2, sorry, the other way around. Okay, so there's 1 or 2 there. Anyone else? Some people mightn't even know how many. Okay, so there's a mixture. So there's 1 and 2 and 4 exams. So there is a bit of a mixture. So I suppose it's kind of knowing what exams you have in, at what time, and what are you expected to know for these exams as well. That's great, thank you. So have you seen your exam timetable yet? It's just a yes or no. So the exam timetable is up on the exams website. So you just type in your code, your module code, and it'll tell you what time the exam is on, what date, and the length. And this semester there is also an upload time. So you might have a 60-minute exam, and you might be given a half an hour then added onto it. To upload your work. So you have that upload time as well added on. But if you haven't, just check out the exams website. So I think the first thing is to do is look up the timetable and see what exams you have and times and dates, and then to create a study plan. So we've kind of done study plans before. I think it was the second week we did time management and things. So we're just going back over some of that. So when you're creating your study time, you normally start by putting in the dates of your exams, and then it's really good to work backwards sometimes. So normally if you kind of put your date for the exam as a Friday, what will you do the day before? Oh, I'm going to revise whatever. What are you going to do the day before that? So it's getting more so you're going from general and then to kind of narrowing down your topics on what you're going to do the day before exams. It's really important to give yourself some time off during the Christmas as well. So you might need to kind of schedule in, you're taking Christmas Day or St. Stephen's Day or Christmas Eve, and then maybe New Year's. So it's really important to give yourself, a Christmas break as well. And to kind of re-energize, because it has been a tough year studying at home. So definitely take a few days off, and don't feel guilty for taking them off either. So I suppose adding breaks for days and also throughout your day. So making sure that you're not studying for too long each day. So normally, I suppose every 20-25 minutes, it's kind of seen that if you take a break, even a 5-minute break, it can be helpful to concentration. Add flexi time. So flexi time we discussed at the beginning of these webinars is an hour, like normally at the end of the day, where you schedule in. And I suppose if you haven't any work done, you can do it in that time. But if you have your work done, then you can use it to reward yourself and to do something that you like. But that kind of gives you, extra time to get things done. And then be realistic with your goals. So when you're goal setting and creating like your plan for the day, just making sure that they're SMART goals. So S for specific, M for measurable. So specific would be I will write my introduction. Measurable, so they need to be measured. So I'm going to study a topic, or I'm going to write 300 words. Attainable, so that's like realistic. Can they be realistic? Can you manage studying a whole topic in an hour? Relevant, so it's obviously relevant for your exams, and that will increase motivation. And then time bound, so you just need to put a time limit. And I think putting a time limit on your study day is really important as well. So picking a time that you're going to start and finish, just like myself and Keeva would have, a start and finish time for work. It's really important to have that as well, so you can build in time to relax in the evenings.
Yeah, which is really important, especially over Christmas, to get some time to relax.
Yeah, so I suppose when you're kind of doing your study plan, you can kind of take into consideration the Pomodoro technique that we've also discussed. So this is when you kind of spend 20-25 minutes at a time doing some study, and it will help with your concentration. So normally you just choose your task. So you choose your goal and just make sure it's SMART before you sit down to study. Then you set a timer for 25 minutes. You work until the task rings, and then you kind of tick off the task being done, and also you take a 5-minute short break at the end. And normally you would do 4 Pomodoros, and then you can take a longer break of 20-25 minutes. So if you can do that throughout the day and get motivated, even doing one of them throughout the day, that's almost 2 hours of work. So I suppose figuring out how many of them you can do during a day and being realistic about your study. Is there still feedback coming back, Eva?
Sometimes, but not so much. I think it's just these mics pick up a bit of.
Will I take it out?
Can try it and see, because I think the echo came from myself last time, so I can pause myself, or I can mute myself anyway.
We're having sound difficulty lately.
I know, yeah.
Is that better?
I think so. I think there's an echo from myself though, so I'm going to mute myself and.
I can't hear an echo, but anyway, we'll carry on. So setting up for your exam, so it's really important as well before you have an exam that you set up the room well in advance. I suppose just simple things that can go wrong, like making sure your laptop is plugged in and fully charged. Make sure the time on your laptop is correct. Sometimes the time can be 10 minutes fast or 10 minutes slow, and it'll kind of disrupt your timing for the exam. Make sure the household or whoever is in your house is aware that you're doing an exam, so they don't disturb you. Try and have a quiet room that has good internet connection, and like I suppose less distractions. Keep your desk clutter free. Make sure, I suppose, you have good lighting, so locate near a window or use a lamp lighting. And put your phone on silent or in another room. And I suppose if you're in a noisy environment, you could use like earphones or noise reducing headphones, or some white noise kind of things to kind of help you get through your exam. So we have another question. So out of the exams that you have, do you have any MCQs? So we have 1 yes, 2. So you don't know. Okay, so I think it's really important to figure out which kind of exams, and I know some lecturers might have discussed the exam. They sometimes leave it till almost the last lecture until they speak about the exam, but it's something definitely to find out, and it will guide your study. If you kind of know that you have MCQs or you don't.
We have one question in, and what is an MCQ?
Oh, so an MCQ is a multiple choice question. So multiple choice question. So if you're given a question and you're asked to tick on the correct answer, so there'll be a choice of answers, and then you have to tick the correct one. So that's it. So I should have explained that. So yeah, that's multiple choice questions. And sometimes they're on Moodle. You can do them on Moodle. And some of the exams will look like that. So when you're studying for an MCQ, I suppose it's really important that you kind of, it's different to other exams. So make sure you organize your notes and look at your, key terms and definitions. And you might need to make a list and tables of things like that. And concentrate on understanding multi-step processes or natural sequences. So sometimes there might be, a step 1, a step 2, a step 3, if it's something to do with a lab, or what is the first thing to do. What I can remember is, Keeva, do you remember the PPE video? So, how to put on a mask, and you had to know the steps on how to put on the mask, and what do you do first? Do you sanitize your hands first, or do you put on the mask first? So there is kind of choices like, what do I do first as well? So have a look at the multi-step processes. Also looking at similarities and difference between the choices from a distractor. So sometimes there will be a distractor put in there, and it might have different grammar. It might be just worded in a funny way that might throw you. And so I suppose you can kind of use process of elimination. What's the most true to the statement? So when you're organising your notes, highlight the key vocabulary and key definitions. And also you can also reorganize your material into questions. So if you have a definition, like what would be a possible question for that definition? So kind of, writing down a few possible questions might help you, and might kind of help you with the, questions anyway.
Another question has just come in. Would the questions they ask you be different than in a normal exam?
Say that again, Keeva?
So are the questions they ask you different than in a normal exam?
Sometimes they can be the same, but like I suppose each lecturer is going to have a different way of doing them. Like I suppose there might be just questions, and it might be just a yes or no, or a true or false. Then in another exam, a written kind of exam, like an essay question, you might have to elaborate it more. But it's really, you're just ticking the box for the right answer. So there's no really written work with it. But it depends on the lecturer what kind of questions they ask. So there's, I suppose, so revision for MCQs, be sure you know what the definitions mean, using your flashcards and testing yourself on them definitions. So in the MCQ, so make sure that you're following the instructions. Make sure you read the instructions really carefully. So they could be like a question, mark 1 correct answer, or mark all correct answers. So just kind of make sure that if they're only asking for 1, or if they're answering for more than 1, that can be kind of a tricky kind of thing as well. So making sure that you're reading. There's also a good way to cover up the possible responses before you even look at the possible responses. So, using a sheet of paper, looking at the question and kind of thinking about the answer yourself and see if you know it, and then you'll be able to kind of see if that answer is there, because it can be sometimes confusing. Sometimes MCQs are very tricky. You don't know which one is the closest to the answer. I suppose if you're unsure, skip it and come back later. So I suppose we're going to talk about timing of the exams. So you might have like 2 minutes for each question or something like that, but kind of figure out what your timing is. And also eliminate answers that are obviously wrong. So if you're unsure, process of elimination, you might be come down to two questions. So kind of seeing which is the most true to be the answer. There also might be true or false questions in multiple choice quizzes. So just to read the statement very carefully. if every part of the statement is true, the answer is true. If only one part is false, the answer is false. So that's kind of confusing, but if something is true, you need to make sure the whole answer is true. If something is false, only one part of the answer needs to be false. So I don't know if that makes sense, Keeva.
No, it makes sense. They can have it that the echo's kicking in now. If there is part of it wrong, the rest of it could be right, but there's that one element that could be wrong, and the answer is wrong.
Yeah. So just making sure that you read the question really, really well. And look out for negatives. It is not the case. So, the not, never. So just making sure that you're reading every single word. Take care with comparative statements. X is more likely when you have Y than X when Z. So there is kind of things like that, more likely, and it's comparison. So make sure you're reading and underlining or whatever the questions. Look out for words like always or never as well. That can be kind of a true or a false question. So there's also open book exams, and I suppose these are the longer ones that might be for 24 and 48 hours. The lecturer is likely to have a higher expectations for the quality of your answer, as they know you have the course material. You might be asked, questions like compare, contrast, evaluate. So you're aiming for concise, well-supported answers. So you do need references, and I suppose each lecturer will be different and will let you know on what they're expecting, but more than likely we will need references if it's an essay kind of based question. If it's an MCQ, you obviously don't need references. So there's another way to kind of look at your study and organisation when you have open book exams. So you can organise your notes so that you can locate information quickly, and be familiar with your materials, so you don't waste valuable time searching through the exam. So I suppose if you have piles and piles of notes and sheets everywhere, just making sure that they're all kind of together and all the topics are together, so you're not spending your time looking for the information. You can make brief and legible notes and organise your notes by topics. So you can also bookmark useful chapters or pages, so by using post-it notes. And if you have, I suppose, a copybook, you could create a contents page and number all your pages in your copy, so you know what page which section is on and things, so it's faster to follow. If you're using formulas or formulae, will be part of your exam, put these in a separate, easily accessed place. So you could put them like at the beginning or end of your notes. So just have them all together.
Before we do the Mentimeter, there's a question. Does it differ this year in terms of open book because there's only 4 hours this year?
Okay, so I suppose each exam is different. So there is timed exams from like 1 hour to 4 hours, and then there's also the 24-hour ones, I think. So I suppose if you have, is it 4 hours, Keeva, that the student has?
They mentioned 4 hours, yeah.
Yeah, so I suppose just making sure that you have all the information in front of you, and have your notes well organized as well. So I suppose it's just limiting the amount of time that you're spending trying to find the information, and having your notes kind of well organized, so you know straight away where to go when you're looking for things. So do you have any essay based questions? So essay based, so I suppose you're given a question and you're asked to answer it as like an essay kind of thing. So we have a few yeses. Great. So we have a few yeses there. So I don't know if some of your first years or whatever, but I suppose your lecturers will let you know what kind of you're expected of. And I think it's just really important to have a good structure to your essay, and more than an assignment you can kind of go into different kind of sections more, but essays in exams are very more concise and they're to the point, and it's just making sure that you're answering the question, that they're not as long as assignments. So just making sure, we went over this before, making sure that you have a good essay structure. So it's really important to maybe do a brainstorm at the start. What are you going to mention in paragraph 1, paragraph 2, paragraph 3, and then your introduction and conclusion. So the introduction in an essay, in an exam, is not as kind of, you don't need to put as much information as you would as in an assignment. So it might be just introducing the topic, answering the definition, and saying this essay will discuss this, this, and this. And then your concluding paragraph, just make sure that you're summing everything up as a whole. So paragraph structure is really important as well in exams. So you just want to make sure that you're getting to the point in each of your paragraphs and not kind of going off on a tangent anywhere. So using the Peel model. So P for point. So you make a point that links to the question. E, explain or expand. Explain your point and make it relevant to the question. E, examples or evidence. So you might have a journal article or a study that can kind of, give evidence for this point and prove your point and argue your case. And L, link. So the topic and kind of wrap up the paragraph by kind of linking back to the question. So your exams are going to be really structured like that. Your essay should be really structured, and you're doing the Peel in every paragraph, except your introduction and conclusion, and it'll just make the lecturers know that you're actually answering the question and you're getting things answered. It's really important as well for if you have kind of longer open book, or if you have 48 hours or 24 hours to do an essay kind of thing, that you are being critical. So if you have access to your notes, then the lecturer expects that you're going to expand on that information. So it's really good to kind of use critical thinking in your assignments, in your exams. So I suppose asking like who, what, where. So we have like who benefits from this, what are the strengths and weaknesses, what is another perspective, where. So where would you see this in the real world? Where are there similar concepts or situations? Then we have when would this benefit society? Why is this a problem or a challenge? Why is this relevant? How does this benefit or harm others? How do we see this in the future? So just kind of asking yourself critical kind of questions about the topic as well, to expand what's in your books or what's in your notes, and really kind of be critical of things. So being critical isn't always negative, it can be positive as well. So also when you're kind of planning for your exams, have a brief plan of how much time you'll spend on each question. So say if you have 4 hours, I need to kind of figure out, if you have two questions to do, then you have 2 hours to do each question, but also consider your time for reading the question. So you might need 5 minutes to read the questions, another 2 to decide which question to answer. You might need to brainstorm if you have like an essay-based question. I suppose giving yourself time to complete the questions, so it could be a half an hour, and just making sure that you're putting time to proofread as well. So just kind of having that kind of plan in your head, what time you need to spend on each question and what time to move on. It's sometimes better to leave a question and move on to another one, even if you haven't finished, because that's where you're going to gain your most marks. If you have kind of coming near the end of a question and you're running out of time, there's not as many marks there for you to get. There's more in another question. So just kind of be conscious of your timing. So what techniques do you have for studying for exams? So this is just, I think you can just put in any words yourself. So there's different ways. So there is like using exam papers, flashcards, mind maps, you know, reading aloud, testing yourself with a friend. Is there anything, Keeva, that you have? So we have past exam paper questions. Yeah, that's really good. Read and get questions, exam papers, writing things out, that can be helpful, and using mind maps. That can be good. There's different ways, and it's really to figure out which kind of ways would benefit you. We've also
Sorry, I realised I was muted.
Oh.
But no, I would have used the same thing. Mind maps was something I used a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, and I suppose it's kind of, you know, starting off broad, you know, what you're studying, and then narrowing into things once you kind of get familiar with the topic, which is good. So you can see that there's different ways, and it's really important to kind of mix it up as well. So not to be doing the same kind of studying all the time, because that is very monotonous and very boring. So you might want to look at your exam paper questions one day, look at flashcards another day, you know, so you're mixing it up. So I suppose this is kind of a few study techniques that might be helpful. So the first one is looking up previous exam paper questions, and I definitely would do this now if they're available. I know they mightn't be if they're online, but if the lecturer has kind of said there's an exam papers up, definitely look them up. You can look them up on the library website, I think. So sometimes you might need to study all your lectures. So picking out which topics you're going to study. So say if you have 10 topics studied in class, and 5 questions will come up in the exam and you only need to answer 2, then if you study 7 topics, you're guaranteed to get 2 on the exam paper question. You might want to do 7 or 8 to kind of make sure that you have definitely 3 or whatever, 3 answers that come up, and then you have a choice between what ones you need to do. But definitely narrowing down your study and not trying to study everything that you covered, because you might have other modules as well. So figuring out which topics you're good at, which topics that you like studying, and kind of basing your study around that. I'd also then base your kind of organisation of your notes on the topics that you choose. There's no point writing notes for a lecture that you're not going to kind of study for. And you know, when you're organising your notes, you can use colour and highlighter to make them easy to remember. So there's also, I know a student said, you know, they're writing out their exams, so that can be, or when you're studying, so that can be really helpful as well to kind of, you know, get that in your head. There's also a technique called look, cover and write, and I remember we did this when we were learning spellings. Would you have used it, Keeva, before?
Yeah, definitely. Or quotes, I think, as well.
Yeah. So you'd read it, you'd cover it, and you write it. So you might read a paragraph of your text, cover them, and write out what are the main points. So you don't need to write out word for word, but you can maybe make bullet points and go back, see what you forgot. And sometimes it's the kind of things that you forget and that you forget, it makes you remember the next time, because when you do it another time, you're like, oh, I forgot that last time. So it'll help you remember. So it's good to forget as well, but identifying where you're forgetting is really helpful. So creating mind maps. So I suppose once you kind of have, you know, organized your notes and you might have done your look, cover and write, you can create mind maps for your topics. So this is really good for visual learners. So you can use color and highlighter, you know, create branches for different topics or whatever like that, and kind of link them up with similarities or differences as well. So when I was doing my exams, all my exams were essay based. So I used to do mind maps once I organized my notes and I kind of knew which kind of points were relevant and needed in the question. I would kind of look at each topic and I'd create almost an essay plan as part of a mind map. So I'd do introduction. So I'd put bullet points, what am I going to say in the introduction? Then I'd do another branch, paragraph 1. Then I'd kind of put what points need to be in paragraph 1, paragraph 2, paragraph 3, and then points for the conclusion. So I was getting my, the information in, but I was always kind of studying a good essay structure as well. And then you can use your visual memory then in the exam. So when I used to go into the exam, I used to draw out my mind map straight away if that question came up, and it's just kind of remembering. And yeah, that's what I did. Do you have any techniques, Keeva?
I did the same thing, and then I used a mind map to test myself as well, trying to recall and go in an order.
Yeah. And I used to kind of write them out, roughly as well, so it helped me remember. Yeah. So there's also the use of flashcards. So I suppose if you have any kind of, definitions or formulas that you need to remember, or other kind of quotes or something like that you might need to remember for English or something, you can kind of test yourself, and you can put, the word at the front and put the definition behind it. So you're kind of testing your memory and then checking if you're correct. I know there's apps that you can use as well on your phone that you can do them automatically and create them as well. So that might be something to do as well. So you can also practice your exam paper questions. So sometimes it's good to do them with the notes first, and then also without your notes, and seeing how well you get on. And if you kind of do the questions within the time, and also go back on your notes and figure out what you forgot to mention in the question, and just kind of make note of that. It is a good way to kind of remember it within the exam. So I suppose this is rating your confidence and your anxiety and motivation. So it's 1 to 5, so very poor, very good. So rating your kind of self about exams. So how confident are you feeling? How motivated are you feeling? And how anxious are you feeling with your January exams? And I suppose just on that, like, it is normal to feel anxious, and if you're first year, it's kind of, fear of the unknown as well with online exams, but they should go well if you put the work in. So we have a good few there. So
yeah,
average. So I think most of us are feeling quite comfortably confident. I suppose your confidence will increase as soon as you've kind of done more study. We're still very early on and we haven't finished the semester yet. So as soon as you start studying, your confidence will tend to increase. And on that, hopefully your anxiety will decrease when you kind of get stuck into your study and, finish all your continuous assessment that you need to do for the remainder of the year. And just on the anxiety as well, just it's normal to feel nervous as well. So that's a good thing. That means that you want to achieve and do your best. And motivation. So I think motivation is quite high at the moment, and that probably is at the start. Sometimes everyone's like, yes, I need to study, and then as it gets closer and closer, it can kind of feel like you're just studying the whole time. So I suppose changing up your study techniques and creating a plan and giving yourself days off, like, will kind of keep that motivation steady.
I think it's a good thing in study evenings have something fun to do after you've finished up your study.
Yeah, definitely. So making sure that you reward yourself for all the hard work you're doing. Watching a Christmas movie, or going for a walk, or the gym might be open now, but meeting up with friends, you probably be able to do that at Christmas as well. I don't think we're as restricted as we were. So just kind of plan for other stuff as well. Don't kind of say that you're going to be studying the whole time. So if you're kind of stressed and everything, so I suppose just remembering that test anxiety is normal. Don't forget to mind yourself. So especially, sleeping, eating, exercise, taking regular breaks and downtime, because we do need a break from studying, and myself and Keeva definitely don't expect you to be doing 8-9 hours study a day. So just kind of be realistic with how much you can do. Is it more beneficial that you spend, 2-3 hours studying and getting good solid work done than spending 8 hours in your room where you're kind of half doing it, you're on your phone, you're talking to a friend, you're on TikTok or whatever. So like it might be more beneficial to you to spend that 2-3 hours, and then you have the rest of the day to do whatever you want and watch as much TikTok as you want. So have the practical issues organized, so in advance, so your study plan, materials, time, length of exam. And then also, if you're kind of feeling stressed, make sure that you're talking to someone, so a family or friend, and maybe run through it with a peer in the class, like what are they studying, how are they feeling. Also treat yourself, as we said, reward yourself. There's some relaxation techniques that we will cover now, and remembering that exams are time limited and there is an end in sight, and exams don't define you as a person, so nobody's going to be in a job interview what did you get in your January exams in 2021. Don't let that define you, and I suppose remember that there is an end in sight. So just to kind of finish up with kind of how to manage exam stress, so I've kind of done something here to kind of change your thinking habits and also kind of relax. So we touched on this last week, so it's the STOPP, stop. So this is kind of challenging your negative thinking. So if you feel that you're kind of feeling negative about your exams, just so S, stop and step back. So don't act immediately, pause. T, take a deep breath. So notice your breathing in and out. Observe. So I suppose we can't help what kind of thoughts come into our mind. What am I thinking and feeling right now? Is this a fact or is this opinion? So as we discussed last week, facts are something that it's true, where opinions is your own kind of prejudices. Pull back, so gain some perspective. What would you say to your friend if you're feeling like that? And also practice what works. So I suppose you know yourself better than anyone. So does going out for a walk help? Does doing deep breathing help? Does talking to a friend help? Just kind of figuring out what helps and doing that. So there's also deep breathing exercises, and we have done this before as well, and I think this is a really nice one. So you can even do this during exams. So you kind of breathe in and then breathe out, and breathe in and breathe out. And you can do this if you're feeling a bit anxious even during the exam, just that with your thumb and following your breath and breathing in and out, and it'll help you relax and kind of gain your sense of what you're at and where you're going to go, and relax yourself about doing the exam. We've also done this grounding technique before, so this is a really good one. It's a really quick one, like 30 seconds, that you can do to kind of get yourself back in the present, to stop overthinking. So 5 things you can see. So you look around your room, so I can see the whiteboard, I can see a chair. 4 things you can feel. I can feel me sitting on the seat, I can feel my feet on the ground. 3 things you can hear. So I can hear my computer buzzing. 2 things you can smell, or your favorite smells. So apple tart, and then 1 thing you can taste, so, or your favorite taste. So my favorite would be probably chocolate. I'm chocoholic. I think Keeva, you are too.
Oh, 100%.
So that's just a good way, if you're kind of feeling stressed, or if you go blank in an exam, that can also happen with stress. So figuring out doing the grounding technique and getting yourself back and grounded and back into the present moment. So that's it for our final webinar. Does anyone have any questions? We might stop recording too, Keeva.